This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your hosts, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. Today we have a guest with us, Erik Latsha. How are you, Erik?
I'm doing pretty well.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you on the show today. So just a quick bio on Erik. So Erik is the president and founder of Honest Home Solutions, LLC. He takes pride in being a student of the game we call real estate investment. He is invested in understanding the market and continues to grow his extensive knowledge of real estate acquisitions, wholesale novations, renovating, marketing, and dispositions of these properties. He has been fully submerged in real estate for a little less than a decade and has been involved in the marketing, purchasing, and or selling over 1,500 transactions. Erik, again, thanks for joining us today. Why don't you give us a little background on yourself? How did you get started in real estate?
Sure. I actually got started in real estate almost 10 years ago now, and I started as a buyer's agent and was really leaving the restaurant industry. I'd had my second kid, and nights, weekends, and holidays were just extremely painful. Mm-hmm. And I thought that real estate would be a little different. It was not. But I started as a buyer's agent, moved into, after a couple of years as a buyer's agent, moved into being an acquisitions agent for another company. And then not long after that, about 3 years after that, went in and opened my own company in real estate investment.
Awesome. Wow, that's great. So I know that it's, you worked for a company for a little while. Like, when did you make that decision and how did you make that decision to say, okay, now it's time to kind of move on my own?
Sure. I mean, I think that's probably a hard decision at any time because I was doing really well as an acquisitions agent. I was making a really good amount of money too. Mm-hmm. And there was just some different things as you start to look at what your career looks like and what your future looks like. I was very committed in that position. I worked incredibly long hours and sometimes, just nonstop. Mm-hmm. Missed some important things in my family's lives and my kids' lives. And at some point for me, it was a time to money type of situation. Was the money more important? Could I continue to go and work at this rate forever? Mm-hmm. Or did I need to make a decision where I could work incredibly hard, probably, even more hard than what I was working then, but to build something where I could get back some of my time so that I could do some of the things that I do now, such as, coaching my kids and being involved in a lot of different stuff. So, for me, it was a tough decision. Yeah. I was really happy where I was at. We were doing well. But at the end of the day, I think, the way it lined up for both the company that I worked for and for myself, we both became better in the split. Mm-hmm. So it was a tough setup and very challenging when it first started. But it was how do I buy back some of my time in the long run and the commitment that it would take to do that. Right. But it was, that's always a tough decision when you're in a position where you're doing well, but you have to make a decision of, okay, I'm going to take 3 steps back to take 10 steps forward. Mm-hmm. Or do I want to just continue on this path where I didn't really know if there was growth potential based on the way things were aligned at that time and what that setup was going to look like in the long run. So right. For me, it was a tough decision with 2 little kids, but it was, has paid off in the long run.
Yeah.
Sounds like it was the right decision. But I also, because we get a lot of people that, especially younger, either entrepreneurs or people that are thinking about it. But I think you working for somebody or in an industry or for a company where you eventually want to go off on your own. I don't know if that was your vision from the get-go, but I mean, do you recommend to other people or other students or people that, hey, probably go work for somebody that in an industry or in a niche that you want to learn, and go work for somebody first and learn everything before you really try to go off on your own and figure it all out? Do you recommend that path, being that that's what you did, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely important to have a solid understanding of what is asked of you and what is going on in that industry. I had, honestly wouldn't be where I'm at without the work ethic that I learned in that position. Also, some of the demands of real estate and really understanding how to move. I had an incredible boss at that time that really gave me an opportunity that was something that I was able to run with. And then as I became, very good at that position, empowered me to make a lot of decisions. So there was, a lot to be learned, and the good and the bad, in both sides of it. So when that's the route you take, it gives you a good vision of things that you want to do, maybe some things you don't want to do, and lets you understand really the whole business, if you're deep enough in it to be able to grasp what's going on from the beginning of the transaction to the end of the transaction, in probably any business that you're in. I don't know what it would be like as a doctor or lawyer or something like that, but in something that would involve sales and transactional stuff, I would say there is a very good learning experience to get the work ethic, and really understand the ins and outs of the business before you go out on your own. If that's the route that you take.
Yeah, totally. I can see that. I mean, we talk about this all the time on our show, right? I mean, if you really want to, good, like you said, good and bad, right? You may not know what all the details are, and you might get in and you might absolutely hate it, but or you might say, yeah, this is what I want to do. But I think that, working 100%. For somebody.
I'm just curious, is there anything when you went off on your own and started building your own company, was there anything that you maybe didn't know before you left? I guess like learning lessons that you still, even though you worked for a company, you got pretty.
I'm sure there were tons.
Yeah, but like a good experience, good knowledge, good understanding. But like once you finally go off your own, what were some of the big? Because I think we've had several employees that we've trained, developed, worked with over the years, and they go out and start their own business and their own venture. And I think it's hard for us to have them leave, but at the same time, isn't that what the purpose of what we're spending all this time, educating and developing our team? And there's always that risk, but I'd rather develop my people and grow them and have them take our companies to new heights. But yes, there's that risk that they're going to leave and go on their own. But I guess, is there like takeaways you had once you went on your own? You're like, wow, I didn't really realize this, or maybe you did. Maybe it just opened your eyes to being on the other side of the spectrum, rather as a boss or as the owner versus boss. Yeah.
So many things I had to when you're working for someone, there is a lot of things that you think you might understand until you're actually on that side. Some of the stresses and overhead and that there's costs there, but you don't
feel
really
that pain.
you don't comprehend them until they're your struggles. They're your costs, they're your stresses, because no matter what, when you're working for somebody, unless that business is going under, you're getting a paycheck. Right. If you're buying houses and but you're not looking. It's not always. It's just a totally different way of looking at things when you're working for someone. And I deal with it with employees now, and I try to give my employees as much opportunity to grow within the business, so that as a leader, if we're building leaders, that you don't want them to leave, but at the end of the day, if they do, you can wish them success. and if they stay, you want to give them opportunities to lead others within the business and grow so that they have potential to get there. But I would say, the biggest thing that I didn't know is probably some of this, just the overall understanding that you are the responsibility that goes along with everyone that you are employing, and that you are taking care of them, their families, their kids, like all that stuff, health insurance, 401ks, all the stuff that comes out on your overhead and that you have to do by providing vehicles, gas, whatever it may be.
Right.
There is so much of a responsibility to them for you guys to be successful. And you almost have to remove yourself out of it. And when you're an employee, most of the time it is about, especially in a sales position, a revenue generating position in a company, it's about, you're focused on you. You're focused on the money that you're making because you don't have those other responsibilities. And as an employer, you're focused on the stresses of making sure that the culture is right, your people are happy, managing people differently based on personalities and understanding how to communicate with different people. There's just things that I've learned through over the years in leadership or running a business that I really didn't grasp. Now, granted, my father owned his own law firm for 20 some years before I went into business. So me and him are much different. I'm a very risk to reward individual. He's a very detail oriented individual, which you'd expect as an attorney. So there was some things that, he had dealt with over the years that when I was going to make this decision that he brought to my attention that I might not have thought about because I was just gung-ho ready to go. And he made me sit back and look at some of the pieces of the puzzle before they, were put together.
Oh, yeah.
That was well said. And it is a different maybe you might have an idea or you think, but you don't really truly grasp it is the best way.
Yeah. And I think you made a point there about, managing and leading people. That's another whole different ball game that you probably didn't realize as well, right? Because same with us, we started our real estate career when we were 19 years old, and we never really worked in a corporate, environment. And so leading and managing people for us was oh my gosh, right? And so I'm sure it was for you as well.
100%.
Yeah. So what are some things that maybe that you do, to help, grow yourself personally so you can help your team and lead them?
Sure. One of my biggest things was to continue to learn how to lead, and to make sure that when I look and learn from other people that I'm, first of all, learning from people that are doing it the right way. Because there's, there's a million people nowadays that or coaching or talking or sharing about whatever that honestly might not be the way that you want to run your business or run the culture of your company. But more importantly is that you can never stop learning. I chat all the time with people from my mastermind and different individuals that I look up to that have things that about them or the way that they lead or employees that have told me how great these people are, that have just been a focus. So never stop learning is honestly the most important thing to me. I have a few books that I could tell you that have meant, a lot to me in the sense of, Atomic Habits and different things like that to really focus on some things that help you be a better leader. But then the other thing I would say, that I learned is that a lot of leaders become a bottleneck of their company because they want to control final decisions. And I think that it's natural for someone to do that. And what happens is people lose interest or lose confidence in themselves because they're actually they're not making the decisions, you are. And if you're hiring the right people and putting the right people in the right place and training correctly and communicating correctly, you want to be able to empower those people to make those decisions and even empower them to make mistakes.
Right.
And then be able to, grow as that happens, because as I grow and make mistakes, I need to be able to own them to my team. Owning mistakes and being vulnerable to your team, I believe, is one of the best things that you can show, because you're not perfect, and it gives them the ability to fail as well. And in that, in failure, there's the most growth that you can find, and people learn the most at those times.
Yeah. Love it.
That's awesome. In your bio that Joni read, you had mentioned you're getting up to 150 transactions per year, which is a lot, and it's a decent sized company and business. And so, what are some of the key things that you did along that, the last 10 years that really got you to that level of volume of transactions? Is it focusing on marketing, your sales people? Like, what are some of the key attributes that helped you build that company that size?
Honestly, one of the biggest things I would say is making sure that we were capable of finding a deal in any situation. And there's a lot of individuals that have niches, without a doubt. And I do think there's a part about staying in your lane that is very important, or you'll crash and burn quickly. But being able to provide the most amount of solutions for every seller that we deal with, even if it comes to, a retail transaction that it doesn't make any sense as an investor, but you have an agent that's able to turn that into a retail. Understanding how to do a short sale and putting yourself in that position, understanding what a wholesale looks like, understanding how to do a novation, subject tos, whatever it would be, is having enough tools in the tool belt to generate income and ROI off of what you're spending. And then the other side of that would be, don't be scared to spend. That was one of the scariest things as we grew. We weren't sitting with a lot of capital when we first started, so we had to figure out different ways to monetize social media, those types of things that weren't costly. And then as we grew our company, we needed to make sure that there was an ROI on what we did. So, I literally had a training this morning about from lead intake to appointment scheduled, just with some of my guys, and tried to explain that, like, every lead costs money. So everything that we get, like, no matter what, there's a cost that's associated with that, either skip trace lead or whatever it may be, the data that we're pulling in, and making sure that if we have all these options, that even if someone calls in and they want retail, we need to be able to turn that into, that's not something we want to turn away, because even if it's minimal income, it's some type of ROI on what we're spending. And I think that became how we got to a point where we could do that many transactions, was because we are focused on making sure that if they want to sell a house and that or sell a property of any type, that we have a solution and an option that we can provide for them. And all we need to do is talk through it and get to it.
Yeah. How do you, the struggle I think we had over the years is, how do your sales team, I agree with you 100%. How do you get your sales guys to, is it like, how do you train them up to be able to see those different solutions or know how to offer them and like pivot,
Yes.
I think it's difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah.
100%. It is a very difficult mindset, because they are always looking at it as, hey, if I acquire this property as a wholesaler, we acquire this property as a flip, this is where they make obviously the most money, and innovation, wholesale, because that's where, and when you're talking about it as an employee, when going back to what we talked about earlier, they have by and I did too, by nature, a thought process of how can I make the most money? Mm-hmm. And, it's hard to have somebody teach somebody to have the concept of, I'm transitioning to this and I'm kicking this to our agent, even though I make limited income on it. But it's best for the company. Mm-hmm. That's a really hard transition unless you own the company, right? Because they're looking at it. Well, maybe if I put it in my follow up and mark it as warm, I'm going to keep communicating with these people because I think there might be something there. When there might never be anything there, and they want to sell now. But they're going to end up talking to somebody else. They're going to put it on the market, and then it's going to be no income. But that acquisitions agent might not have cared. So I think it's really important when we're going through that training and we're talking about different ways to really focus on how it affects the company. Really give them true insight on dollars and cents and what that looks like. We spend $85,000 a month on marketing. So when you're talking about those types of numbers, they need to understand that in the long run, this is how we continue to do that. Mm-hmm. I want to pour into you as much as possible. When there's a deal that might not, this is what that, and then you walk over what that transition looks like from option to option to option to option, and how to have that conversation. And a lot of that is just being open and honest that maybe a cash deal might not be the best, and really putting a lot of those options on the table at the same time, based on the communication and conversation that you had with that individual over the time period that you're spending with them. So, it's still tricky. Some people don't, it takes a little bit of time to be confident in what you're saying when you're talking about so many options. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the biggest struggles. But when someone is close, we'll bring in, either a seasoned acquisitions agent or myself to be able to really dive deep into some of those questions, and hopefully it works.
Yeah.
It's always it's a struggle. And I think it comes down to a really good sales manager.
Right. And I was going to ask you about that. So, now that we're talking about sales, how often do you meet with your sales guys, and right? And what are some things that you go over with them, and maybe even sales training that you can recommend? Because there's a lot of our listeners that are listening that, are going through the same thing.
I would totally agree. And it's always a conversation that comes up. Even at masterminds, people are running great companies and struggle in this situation. So, I have a monthly sales training with my team, but we have a team of 11 in the office. So my head acquisitions agent, who is he's a great acquisitions agent. And a lot of the stuff I'm working with him is on leadership stuff, like how to bring people in. Sorry, I don't know what that was. How to bring people in and train them, and really lead them. Mm-hmm. But for, bringing in that right person for sales. Oh my goodness, what is going on? Sorry, I don't know how my iPad keeps going off, but I apologize.
You want to just cut it out, Brett? You want to just cut it?
Yeah. Let's. I'm at 23:30, Dan, and then we're going to come back in, and we don't hear anything there, Eric. So there's nothing. We don't hear anything on our end. So if it's distracting to you, it's only to you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I thought it took me off the screen because my screen.
No. You're good.
I'll just talk through that. I apologize.
I'll cut it if we lose you. All right, going back in at 24. We're at 24:22.
Do you want to re-ask a question?
He answered part of it though. So
yes, he was starting to answer about his acquisitions agent and training and
sales
teaching
training.
him and leadership skills.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you pick it up for there? You'll lead him in.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. So we're at 24:42. We'll go in at 24:50 in 3, 2, 1. Action, Joey.
Erik, why don't you tell us a little bit about like how you, with your sales training, how often do you meet with your sales guys? Maybe some things that you go over with them. I know a lot of our listeners, that's one thing that they struggle with is the sales aspect of it, right? So maybe you can help us there.
Yeah, sure. So, a lot of those situations for me are just based on making sure that my sales team understands what's going on in our sales department and how we can operate on transactions. I have one main acquisitions agent that I'm trying to turn into a true sales manager with leadership and spending time with those people. And so as we bring on more acquisitions agents, we have an acquisition agent in training right now, and another one hopefully joining the team here shortly. But to make sure that he can kind of fill in where I filled in when I brought him on. We have at least one sales training a month. I try to have them on the acquisitions calls with my mastermind that happens once a month as well. And then, a lot of role play goes into it. And then also, for me, it's one of the biggest things is continuously, if you are a sales guy, so not everybody that runs a company is a sales guy. That's where I learned. That's what I did. And that's what I focus on. Is acquisitions. I don't think you can really have a company without being able to acquire properties. So, part of that would be I diagnose deals with them, things that might be tough, really looking into it, and then trying to take either one day a month or an appointment a month or something like that where you're attending again. Like I really tried to. And then just kind of feed off of each other. It also makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. It reminds you that they're taking leaps and bounds and steps in the right direction. It gives you the ability to chat with them after the appointment, whatever that looks like. I know some people are virtual, but we're all belly to belly. So, in our situation, having those conversations, diagnosing close deals, and coming up with different ways to facilitate those deals hand in hand with them is huge for us. And what it does is you do that once or twice over a deal that's closed. And then next thing you know, they have the confidence to be able to do that same thing when they're out at that transaction. And that's not even really a training. That's more of just working with them on a transaction so they can learn some of that tribal knowledge, because some of it's just the communication or overcoming an objection that they hadn't heard before,
right? And
being able to provide a different option and different understanding of what they thought they heard in the conversation. So, that's really what I do with my sales guys, and it's my acquisitions agents do a really good job in the field.
Yeah, I love that because I don't hear a lot of that. We meet with a lot of investors and a lot of them do the same things, right? Listen to phone calls, that kind of thing. But actually riding along with them, I can totally see how that builds their confidence out there. So cool.
Yeah. And it also, you're sitting side by side with them for the day. So you get to talk about whatever. And sometimes as owner of a company, that separation as your company grows becomes greater and greater. And, he's been with me for 3 years since there was, only 4 people in our company. So, now there's a significantly different amount of people, and that I have a COO and different individuals that have filled that kind of gap in between, our day-to-day conversations. So us being able to, sit down and have conversations, not just about acquisitions, but about life, I think closes that gap a little bit as well, and makes it, more focused on the person and how we're getting better together, and also brings them back to the mindset of the business, because we have conversations about what the business is doing and where we need to get to, and some of the strategic planning that we have over the next 2, 3 to 5 years.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Let's switch gears a little bit. And see if you have the crystal ball. So where do you, in your opinion, and we got, before we jumped on the podcast, we were talking about your market, and you're in a little bit rural areas than maybe the major cities, but so it's a good perspective, because a lot of the people we have on shows are usually in major cities. Right. So and I love that sometimes the rural areas do really, aren't as affected as some of the bigger cities. So just where do you see the market going the rest of this year and into next year? And then kind of, are you and your company, are you guys making any changes, with the recession or, the rising interest rates, all that kind of stuff? What are you guys doing anything differently?
Like I had said earlier, in our area, we do have a little bit of a bubble, and we're kind of protected based on some of the housing prices. Don't get me wrong. We have some very nice areas, and the interest rates and things do affect them. Now, honestly, I'd say there's very few real estate investment guys around here that are flipping, 450 plus homes. Mm-hmm. It's just a limited amount in the areas that they're in. I do believe interest rates are going to come back down, talking to some different, lenders and different things I hear near the end of the year. I think those are going to come back, but we're already starting to see on our side, some of these forbearance issues come into fruition. We are starting to see some individuals that have bought at the peak of the market, looking at different life situations where, they were writing contracts for, $40,000-$50,000 over appraised value with appraisal contingencies pooled. So, and looking for ways out. So I think there is going to be a good amount of REO available on the market coming up here. I think a lot of banks were scared to call this stuff for a while, and then they're getting to a point where we're starting to see more and more of that. In our area, we have continued to sell. We still have limited stuff on the market right now. Mm-hmm. I think there's about 300 and some properties in York County that are available and listed. I do believe that things that are sitting right now, we're targeting those, anything over 90 days to look at as an investor, because a lot of them just would have been moving. They're either priced too high, have something that's wrong, or we're checking them out. Mm-hmm. We're starting to play with the MLS and auction a little bit more than we were beforehand. We were really focused direct to seller, but I think there's going to be a lot more available for us to make money on, that's going to be on the market and have some more access to some more MLS and REO stuff. I literally sat down with my training acquisitions agent yesterday and was like, hey, let's call some of these REO guys yesterday. And we're just focused on building some relationships, and literally everyone we talked to was telling us, they're not going to be like it was in 2008, but some of these guys were like, get ready, because I'm getting more and more. It's coming across my desk all the time. So more and more listings are coming out in that direction. And, I think that if we can stay consistent and focus on still what we do best, being direct to seller, but turning in some of these MLS REO stuff to some profitable renovations, it could be a really good time to buy renovations and flips. Mm-hmm. because our average price point is much lower. If not, it could be a really good buy. If your price point and averages or medians are higher, it could be a really, really good time to be taking on some rentals and being able to purchase them at a lower rate.
Yeah. Consistency. And also you said it earlier, staying in your lane, right? Like how do you not, because us as entrepreneurs, we see the shiny object syndrome, right? You find a good deal somewhere, you're like, oh man, I'm going to go chase that, right? So how do you stay focused on what's important?
Yeah.
100%. Like I just had a mobile home park come across yesterday, and I was like, man, this looks like it would be amazing. But I was sitting there and I was like, man, I would need an operator for this. I would need it's something. So for me, there's opportunity there, but right now I'm kind of just focused on making sure that we can navigate and pivot in this market, right. Making sure that the transactions that we're doing are still promoting us to be able to grow. and continue and stay consistent across the board instead of what a lot of us do is ride this roller coaster of ups and downs and, not pivot when we need to pivot.
Yeah.
So you have two amazing children. So how, and you got into this for more time and spend time with them. So how do you, as an entrepreneur, like manage balancing, the whole work life, family? Because it's still a struggle as an entrepreneur, and
100%.
Yeah, but sometimes as an employee, it'd be better because you can just show up and then you leave and you don't have to worry about anything. As an entrepreneur, you're like, it goes home with you. But how do you manage all that?
Great people.
Yeah.
If I had a real easy, simple answer, it would be really surrounding myself with some great people who are okay with being held accountable, because we've set ourselves up with those types of KPIs and accountability. I can literally operate my business from my cell phone if I really needed to. I've set it up that I can have pretty much a 30,000 foot view of what's going on a daily basis, from lead generation to transaction coordinating, and it's really given me a great capability to manage, lead, and connect with the individuals within my business that I need to when I can see holes in our process and system. But I have a really good COO who understands the processes and systems and really dials in on numbers and ROI and those types of things, and is accountable for those as well. So I can work directly with him, and then he's really good at making sure he's working directly with the heads of those departments and making sure that we're doing what we need to do. So it's I think there's still a great part of our culture that involves me being involved with our management meeting and some different meetings throughout the week that if I just stopped being there would probably cause, I don't know, it would change the culture of how we run. But at the same time, I do believe the people that are empowered to do their position feel like I have full confidence in them to perform at the highest level. And if they don't, or we're struggling in a scenario, I think they feel like it's okay to come and talk to me or come and talk to Rick to make sure that we're figuring that out before we hit the fire, and then I'm in here trying to put out fire and on a little bit of a different mode. So great people. And it's really bought back a lot of my time.
That's awesome. Erik, one question we always ask is, if you could start out early on in your early 20s, what advice would you give yourself?
Buy more rentals. Hold more stuff. That this real estate investment of wholesale novations and renovations is a little bit of a hamster wheel. You need to be able, you're chasing your next deal on a pretty consistent basis, and being able to build long-term wealth is really important. But three things I would say is, no matter what you do in life, is you got to work your nuts off. And like there's nothing. If you want to be an entrepreneur, understand that you got to give up quite a few years of your life to be able to get to the time where you can buy your time back. Be honest and trustworthy. Like if people trust you, understand that if you want to be an entrepreneur and you're going to focus on a business and want to grow other businesses out of it, that people need to have trust in what you're doing and how you do it. And if they don't, it'll be a short-term entrepreneur. Because I tell people all the time, this is a career, not like this is a long-term career that's going to feed my family and generations after me. So if that's the goal, then it can't be short term.
Right.
You can't chase a dollar in the short term to lose millions in the long term.
Right. Well, being an entrepreneur is definitely not for everyone.
For sure.
What's your one question we also always ask is, what's your next? What are you looking to accomplish maybe in the next 5 to 10 years?
I really want to put myself in a position that we have some different areas that we've looked at to be able to grow the business and get better at possible virtual sales or set up some, smaller satellite offices in different areas. To the day that we argue about this at my mastermind all the time, I believe I can buy houses $10,000 to $25,000 cheaper than anybody can on the phone if I'm sitting with somebody in their kitchen.
Yeah.
But might not be the case. It's just where my mindset is. So either remove myself from that mindset and grow on the virtual side, or put up some satellite offices in different areas. I've been, doing some sales training and some different things like that, but have some other different business opportunities that I'd like to venture into once this thing is completely and utterly running smoothly in my, at least close to it, in my opinion, so that I can take a step back and really focus on some stuff. We have REI Business Growth Solutions, which is, me and my COO, he's doing a lot of the operations training and I'm doing a lot of the sales training stuff. So cool. We've helped with that with a few of the guys, and it's been fun. So just some different ways to grow, but just want to keep doing this and making sure that my employees are happy and healthy.
Yeah, love that.
Great. Yeah.
Love that.
And I agree with you. I still believe we're the philosophy of in person. I don't know.
And part of it, I love dealing with people, and I love like face-to-face interaction. So it could be a mindset thing, but I'm with you there.
Yes.
So, how can people get a hold of you, and if they're interested in maybe the training that you guys offer and that stuff? But how can people get in touch with you?
You can reach out to us on either honesthomesolutions.com, but easier way would to find me on Instagram or Facebook, Erik J. Latsha on Facebook and Erik Latsha on Instagram. You can always reach out to me via email, which is eric@honesthomesolutions.com, or I will even drop my cell phone on here if you want to shoot me a text. It's 717-779-8754. Love to chat. I talk about real estate all the time, and always willing to share ideas or talk to you about possible deals that are coming.
Awesome. Well, it's been amazing to have you on the show, Erik, and you provided so much valuable information and tips for our listeners. So thank you for doing that. All the information will be on the show notes as well, so they'll be able to get in contact with you. And any last minute things? No, we appreciate you being here. Anything we can do for you, please let us know. But it was an awesome spending time with you, and hopefully I'll get to, I don't know, will you be in Dallas in a couple weeks?
I actually will not be in Dallas. Okay. I'm taking my kids to Yellowstone.
Nice.
So we're going to see the hibernation of the bears coming out. We were supposed to go in with a bunch of the guys from Investor Fuel in January, but both of my youngest son is a stud wrestler, so I couldn't really miss one of the tournaments that was going on there, and so we had to change it till now. So they're excited. They get out of school for a little bit, get to miss PSSAs, so they're hyped. So I truly appreciate you guys having me on the show. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Love it. As you see, Erik works hard and he plays hard. So
yes, indeed.
All right. Thanks, guys, and make sure you share this episode with your friends. See ya.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there. Talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.